Picture this: a secluded farm in the depths of Bavaria, Germany. This isn't your typical countryside retreat. It's a place shrouded in mystery and soaked in a history that's as dark as it gets. The Hinterkaifeck farmstead was more than just a home to the Gruber family. It was the setting of a crime that would baffle experts for decades. Nestled in the remote, snow-blanketed landscape, the farmstead was named after the nearby hamlet of Kaifeck, located just a kilometer north of Wangen. Its isolation was profound, a place where secrets could fester, and whispers of the unknown were carried by the wind. The Gruber family, who called Hinterkaifeck home, were as much a part of the land as the soil itself. Andreas Gruber, the head of the household, was known to be a bit of a recluse, adding to the farmstead's enigmatic aura. Before the murders, Andreas had reported strange occurrences, like unfamiliar footprints in the snow leading to the farm, but none leading away. It was as if someone, or something, had come out of the forest and vanished into the homestead. Now, here's where you come in, viewers. Imagine stepping back in time to this isolated farmstead. The air is cold, the silence is heavy, and the only sign of life is the smoke rising from the chimney. You're standing at the edge of a mystery that's been unsolved for almost a century. What secrets do you think the land holds? What whispers of the past are waiting to be uncovered? I want to hear your theories, your thoughts, and your hunches. Let's unravel the mystery of the Hinterkaifeck farmstead together. Drop your comments, hit that like button if you're as intrigued as I am, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's most chilling true crime stories. The Gruber family, who lived at the Hinterkaifeck farmstead, were an integral part of this perplexing case. Here's a detailed look at each member of the family and their role in the household. Andreas Gruber, the patriarch of the family. Andreas was known to be somewhat of a solitary figure, which may have contributed to the farm's isolated atmosphere. His reputation in the community was mixed. Some regarded him as a hardworking farmer, while others whispered about a darker side to his character. Kazilia Gruber, Andreas's wife, Kazilia, was the eldest member of the household. Little is known about her daily life, but in communities like theirs, the matriarch would have been central to the running of the household and the upbringing of the grandchildren. Victoria Gabriel, the widowed daughter of Andreas and Kazilia, Victoria was known for her strong voice, which she used as a member of the church choir, a role that was quite prominent in rural communities at the time. Her husband had died during World War I, leaving her to raise her two children with the help of her parents, Kazilia and Joseph. Victoria's children were the youngest inhabitants of the farm. Little Kazilia was a schoolgirl, and her absence from school after the murders was one of the first signs that something was amiss at the farmstead. Joseph, the youngest, was just a toddler at the time of the tragedy. Maria Baumgartner, the family's maid, is a poignant figure in this story. She had just arrived at the farm on the day of the murders, unknowingly walking into a deadly scenario. Her sister had escorted her to the farm and was likely the last person outside the family to see the inhabitants alive. The dynamics within the Gruber family and their interactions with the local community might hold clues to the mystery. The family was known to be somewhat reclusive, which could have made them an easy target for someone with malicious intent. The complexity of their relationships, especially given the rumors of incest between Andreas and Victoria, adds a layer of intrigue to the case. The Gruber family's story is a snapshot of rural life in early 20th century Germany, marked by tragedy and mystery. Their lives and untimely deaths continue to be the subject of speculation and investigation nearly a century later. In the weeks leading up to the tragic events at Hinterkaifeck, a series of peculiar incidents were reported by Andreas Gruber, which in hindsight may have been ominous preludes to the impending horror. The Munich newspaper. In March 1922, Andreas found a newspaper from Munich on the farm. This was particularly strange because none of the family members had been to Munich recently, and they did not subscribe to any newspapers. The source of the newspaper was never determined, adding an element of mystery as to how and why it ended up at Hinterkaifeck. Footsteps in the snow. Perhaps the most unsettling of the pre-murder events were the tracks in the snow. Andreas told neighbors about discovering a set of footprints leading from the edge of the forest to the farm, but none leading back. This suggested that someone had come to the farmstead from the woods and never left, at least not by the same route. Noises in the attic. Andreas also confided in neighbors about hearing footsteps in the attic. Yet a thorough search of the house yielded no one other than the family members. This eerie detail suggests that the murderer might have been hiding in the house, biding their time until the moment to strike arrived. The missing house keys. In a detail that could be straight out of a suspense novel, the house keys went missing shortly before the murders. This detail further compounds the mystery, as it implies either a breach in the family's security or possible involvement by someone with access to the home. Previous maid's claims. Adding to the pre-murder tension, the family's previous maid had left her position 6 months earlier, claiming that the house was haunted and that she could no longer tolerate the strange noises and atmosphere. These pre-murder events paint a picture of a family living on the edge of fear, perhaps aware that something sinister was looming but unable to prevent the tragedy that was to unfold. The combination of these incidents creates a chilling backdrop to the Hinterkaifeck murders, setting the stage for one of the most perplexing unsolved crimes in German history. The disappearance of the Gruber family from their daily routines sent ripples of concern through the local community, a sign that something was amiss at the Hinterkaifeck farmstead. Young Kazilia's absence. The first sign that something was wrong came when 7-year-old Kazilia failed to show up for school. In small communities like theirs, a child's absence would have been quickly noticed, especially when it stretched over several days without explanation. Missing church services. The family was also conspicuously absent from church services, which would have been highly unusual given the role of the church as a community hub at that time. This absence would have been particularly notable in the case of Victoria, who was a member of the church choir and whose presence would be missed. Community concern. These deviations from the family's routine prompted neighbors to investigate. In close-knit rural communities, such changes in behavior would have sparked immediate concern, leading to the discovery of the tragedy. The combination of young Kazilia's unexplained absence from school and the family's absence from church services was out of character for the Gruber family and signaled to the neighbors that something was not right. This prompted the initial investigation into the family's whereabouts, ultimately leading to the discovery of the murders. On the fateful day of April 4, 1922, the quiet of the Bavarian countryside was shattered by a discovery that would etch the name Hinterkaifeck into the annals of true crime history. Neighbors, propelled by a sense of foreboding after days of eerie silence from the Gruber household, ventured towards the farmstead. What they uncovered within the walls of the seemingly tranquil farm was a tableau of terror that would haunt the community forever. The entire Gruber family, along with their new maid, Maria Baumgartner, were found brutally murdered. The investigation that followed would reveal that the assailant had not only committed the heinous acts but had lingered at the farm, unsettlingly at ease among the aftermath of their violence. The bodies, some of which had been bizarrely positioned, bore the silent testimony to the savagery of the crimes. As the news of the discovery spread, the case drew the attention of both local and national press, casting a dark cloud over the idyllic rural life and leaving a trail of unanswered questions that persist to this day. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain a chilling reminder of the fragility of pastoral peace and the enduring mystery that can arise from a single, sinister act. The crime scene at Hinterkaifeck was a grim and perplexing tableau that has baffled investigators for over a century. In the barn, the bodies of Andreas Gruber, his wife Kazilia, their daughter Victoria Gabriel, and granddaughter Kazilia were discovered in a macabre arrangement that suggested a methodical and deliberate act of violence. Each had been lured into the barn and systematically murdered. Inside the house, the scene was equally harrowing. The family's maid, Maria Baumgartner, was found slain in her chambers, her time at Hinterkaifeck tragically cut short on her very first day. In another room lay the body of 2-year-old Joseph, Victoria's son, adding a heartbreaking note to the already chilling scene. The positioning of the bodies and the state of the crime scene indicated that the perpetrator had not only committed the murders with chilling precision but had also remained at the farm for some time afterward. This detail added a layer of psychological horror to the physical brutality of the crimes, as it became clear that the killer felt no haste to flee the scene of their atrocity. The Hinterkaifeck murders, with their eerie prelude and gruesome aftermath, have since become the subject of intense scrutiny and speculation, yet the crime scene itself offers more questions than answers. The silent witness to a night of terror, the farmstead remains a focal point of one of Germany's most haunting unsolved mysteries. The autopsies of the Hinterkaifeck victims painted a gruesome picture of their final moments. The coroner's findings indicated that a mattock, which is a type of pickaxe commonly used in agriculture, was likely the murder weapon. This tool, which was a staple on farms at the time, became an instrument of death in the hands of the murderer. Each of the victims had suffered devastating blows to the head, indicative of a violent and determined assailant. The nature of the wounds suggested a personal and intense animosity towards the victims, or perhaps a cold and detached execution of a heinous plan. The brutality of the attacks left the local community, and later the world, in shock. The mattock, typically used to till the soil, had in this instance been repurposed with a sinister intent, leaving a permanent scar on the memory of the Hinterkaifeck farmstead. The murders, carried out with such a common farming implement, highlighted the vulnerability of this rural family, brutally attacked in the very setting that should have been their sanctuary. The investigation into the Hinterkaifeck murders was a complex endeavor that initially considered a range of motives, including robbery. However, this theory was quickly cast into doubt when investigators found a considerable amount of money at the scene, untouched. This discovery suggested that the motive for the killings was something more personal or sinister, as a robber would likely have taken the money. As the investigation continued, it became clear that the perpetrator or perpetrators were not driven by financial gain. This revelation steered the investigation towards other potential motives and suspects, including those within the local community and even members of the family itself. The presence of the money was a critical piece of evidence that complicated the narrative of the crime and deepened the mystery surrounding the case. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of Germany's most infamous unsolved cases, with the investigation spanning several decades and involving numerous suspects. But no one was ever convicted. The lack of a clear motive and the presence of money at the crime scene are just two of the many factors that have kept this case open in the annals of true crime. The investigation into the Hinterkaifeck murders delved into a myriad of facts, piecing together the events that led up to the tragic night. Here's a factual recount based on the information available. The new maid's arrival. On the afternoon of March 31, 1922, the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived at the farm. Her sister had accompanied her and, after a brief stay, left the farm. It is believed that Maria's sister was the last person to see the family alive. Time of the murders. The murders were committed between the evening of March 31st and the morning of April 1st, 1922. This was deduced from the state of the farm and the daily routines known to be followed by the family. Investigative challenges. The investigation faced significant challenges from the outset. The remote location of the farm, the time that had elapsed before the bodies were discovered, and the lack of forensic technology at the time made gathering evidence difficult. Suspects and theories. Over the years, several suspects were questioned, and various theories were proposed, including those involving vagrants, neighbors, and even family members. However, none of the suspects were conclusively linked to the crime. Robbery theory dismissed. The initial theory of robbery was dismissed when a sum of money was found in the house, indicating that theft was not the motive. This shifted the focus of the investigation to personal motives. Post-murder behavior. Evidence suggested that the perpetrator remained at the farm for several days after the murders, feeding the animals and eating meals, which added a chilling dimension to the case. Ongoing fascination. The case has remained a source of fascination for true crime enthusiasts, and has been the subject of numerous books, articles, and investigations. Despite extensive efforts, the case remains unsolved to this day. The Hinterkaifeck murders stand as a haunting unsolved puzzle in criminal history, with the investigation's real facts only deepening the mystery. The lack of closure continues to provoke both professional and amateur sleuths to search for answers in this chilling case. In the tangled web of the Hinterkaifeck murder investigation, authorities cast a wide net in their search for suspects. The list included a variety of local figures and transient individuals, neighboring farmers. The suspicion naturally fell on those living nearby, as the isolated location of the farm would have made it difficult for someone unfamiliar with the area to navigate without drawing attention. Neighbors were interrogated, but no concrete evidence could link them to the crime. Traveling craftsmen. Given the rural setting in the period, it was not uncommon for itinerant workers and craftsmen to roam the countryside looking for work. These individuals were scrutinized by the police, but again, nothing substantive was found to connect them to the murders. Victoria's late husband. In a twist that adds a layer of intrigue to the case, Victoria's husband, who had reportedly been killed during World War I, was posthumously considered a suspect. This theory suggested that perhaps he had not died and had returned to commit the murders. However, this line of inquiry did not yield any viable leads, as there was no substantial evidence to support the claim of his survival. Lawrence Schlittenbauer. One of the more prominent suspects was Lawrence Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who was among the first to discover the bodies. His behavior and some of his actions raised suspicions, but no definitive proof could be established. Carl Gabriel. Another intriguing suspect was Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, who was reported to have died in the war. Despite being declared dead, some theorized that he might have returned to commit the murders, driven by rumors of infidelity and paternity disputes over Victoria's son, Joseph. The stranger. Theories also surfaced about a mysterious stranger, potentially a vagrant, who could have stumbled upon the farm and committed the crimes. However, this theory was weakened by the fact that the killer appeared to be familiar with the farm's layout and routines. The case has been revisited numerous times over the years, with various investigators proposing different suspects based on new interpretations of the evidence. Despite these efforts, the true identity of the killer or killers remains one of Germany's most enduring mysteries. The Hinterkaifeck case continues to fascinate and horrify, a grim puzzle that remains unsolved. The Hinterkaifeck murders have not only remained an unsolved mystery in the annals of true crime but have also sparked theories that veer into the realm of the paranormal. The farm's haunting history was fueled by reports from Andreas Gruber of strange occurrences before the murders, which included unfamiliar footprints in the snow, unexplained noises in the attic, and the mysterious appearance of a newspaper from Munich. These eerie events led some locals to speculate that supernatural forces were at play, with whispers of the farm being cursed or haunted. The notion was compounded by the previous maid's departure, who left her position claiming that the house was haunted. After the murders, the paranormal angle gained traction, with some believing that the family had been tormented by malevolent spirits, which culminated in the tragic events. While the paranormal theories provide a chilling narrative fit for a horror story, investigators at the time were more inclined towards finding a human perpetrator. Nonetheless, the strange pre-murder occurrences, the brutal nature of the killings, and the subsequent lack of resolution have allowed the paranormal theories to persist as part of the lore surrounding Hinterkaifeck. The case's blend of unsolved crime and eerie preludes continues to captivate the imagination, leaving one to ponder the line between the explainable and the supernatural, whether the product of human malevolence or something beyond our understanding. The legacy of Hinterkaifeck remains a darkly fascinating chapter in true crime history. The last meal of the Gruber family, as revealed by the autopsies, became a significant detail in the timeline of the Hinterkaifeck murders. The contents of their stomachs indicated that they had eaten their last meal in the late evening, which suggested that the family was murdered at night. This detail helped investigators establish a rough time frame for the crime and indicated that the family was likely attacked unexpectedly, without a chance to react or escape. The fact that they were murdered at night, when the household would have been at its most vulnerable and unsuspecting, adds a layer of calculated cruelty to the crime. It paints a picture of a peaceful family evening that turned into a night of horror. The information gleaned from the autopsies about the last meal not only provided clues about when the murders took place but also contributed to the eerie atmosphere surrounding the case, as it underscored the normalcy that preceded the brutal events. The last meal is a poignant detail, often highlighted in retellings of the story, as it humanizes the victims and emphasizes the tragic and abrupt end to their lives. It's a detail that resonates with audiences, making the story of the Hinterkaifeck murders not just a cold case but a deeply human story of loss and mystery. In the months leading up to the tragic events at Hinterkaifeck, the farm was shrouded in an atmosphere of fear and superstition. The previous maid, whose tenure at the farm ended 6 months prior to the murders, had left her position abruptly. Her departure was rooted in a fervent belief that the house and farm were haunted. She reported strange sounds and a persistent feeling of being watched, which eventually became too much for her to bear, leading to her decision to leave. This detail of the previous maid's experiences contributed to the eerie lore surrounding Hinterkaifeck. Her claims of paranormal activity on the farm added a layer of preternatural intrigue to the case and fueled local rumors that would persist long after the murders. The maid's assertions of haunting would later be echoed by Andreas Gruber's own reports of unexplained occurrences, creating a chilling narrative that has captivated the public and true crime enthusiasts for over a century. The story of the surviving maid, with her tales of a haunted homestead, remains a haunting footnote in the dark saga of Hinterkaifeck, serving as a prelude to the horror that would later unfold. Her testimony, whether grounded in reality or the product of imagination, has become an integral part of the mystique that envelops the unsolved mystery of the Hinterkaifeck murders. Maria Baumgartner's arrival at Hinterkaifeck is a poignant detail in the tragic narrative of the farm's history. Her tenure began and ended on the same day, marking a brief and tragic chapter in the larger story of the murders. Maria, stepping into her new role with no knowledge of the farm's eerie past or the fate that awaited her, became an unsuspecting victim of the events that unfolded. The fact that Maria arrived on the day of the murders only to be killed hours later adds a layer of tragedy to her story. It underscores the random and brutal nature of the crime and highlights the cruel twist of fate that led her to Hinterkaifeck. Maria's story is often cited as one of the most heartbreaking aspects of the case, a reminder of the indiscriminate nature of the violence that occurred on that fateful night. Her brief presence at the farm, intended to be the start of a new employment opportunity, instead became a footnote in one of Germany's most haunting unsolved mysteries. The story of Maria Baumgartner, the new maid at Hinterkaifeck, remains a somber reminder of the lives cut short and the human cost of this enduring crime. One of the most chilling clues in the Hinterkaifeck case was the discovery of mysterious footprints in the snow. These footprints led from the edge of the forest directly to the house, but notably, there were no footprints leading back. This eerie detail suggested that the person who left the footprints may have remained on the premises after committing the murders. The footprints were first noticed by Andreas Gruber days before the murders, and he mentioned them to neighbors, adding to the unsettling events that had been occurring around the farmstead. The lack of returning footprints has been a source of speculation and intrigue among those who have studied the case. It implies that the killer was familiar with the area and had a plan, possibly hiding in the attic or another part of the farm until the time was right to strike. This detail adds a layer of premeditation to the crime and suggests that the murders were not the result of a random attack but rather a calculated act by someone who may have had a connection to the family or the farm. The mysterious footprints are a haunting reminder that the perpetrator was at ease in the environment and confident enough to remain there, undetected, even as the search for the missing family began. The footprints leading to the house, with no return tracks, remain one of the most talked about aspects of the Hinterkaifeck mystery, fueling theories and discussions about the identity and motives of the murderer. In the aftermath of the Hinterkaifeck murders, a detail that stood out was the condition of the farm animals. Despite the brutal end met by the family and the maid, the animals were found unharmed and well cared for. This suggested that whoever was responsible for the murders had stayed on the farm for some time after the killings, tending to the livestock. The fact that the animals were well fed and cared for in the days following the murders indicates a familiarity with farm life and routines. It implies that the murderer was comfortable around the animals and knew how to handle them, which could suggest that the perpetrator was someone from a farming background or even someone who had spent time on the Hinterkaifeck farm before. This unsettling detail adds another layer to the mystery, as it contrasts the violent nature of the crime with the seemingly considerate act of looking after the animals. It has led to speculation that the murderer might have had a connection to the family or the farm, further complicating the list of potential suspects and their possible motive. The untouched cattle and the care they received post-murder are among the many perplexing elements of the Hinterkaifeck case that continue to intrigue and baffle those who delve into its history. The mystery of the Hinterkaifeck murders deepens with the detail of the missing murder weapon. A mattock, which was determined to be the most likely weapon used in the killings, was not found at the crime scene initially. This absence led to speculation that the murderer, after committing the heinous act, took the weapon with them, possibly to avoid detection or as a trophy. The missing mattock is a critical piece of evidence, as it could have provided forensic clues to the identity of the murderer. Its disappearance suggests a level of premeditation and awareness by the killer, indicating that they were cautious enough to remove the primary piece of incriminating evidence from the scene. Furthermore, the fact that a house key had gone missing several days before the murders adds another layer of mystery. It raises questions about whether the perpetrator had access to the house or was someone familiar enough with the family to know where the mattock was kept and to take it after the crime. The missing murder weapon is one of the many enigmas that surround the Hinterkaifeck case. The Hinterkaifeck murders have cemented their place in the annals of true crime as one of Germany's most infamous and enigmatic unsolved cases. The sheer brutality of the murders, combined with the mysterious circumstances and the failure to ever apprehend the killer, has led to an enduring fascination that has spanned decades. This ongoing allure has inspired a multitude of books, documentaries, articles, and even theatrical productions, each attempting to shed light on the dark events of that fateful night. Amateur sleuths and professional investigators alike have been drawn to the case, proposing theories that range from the plausible to the outlandish. The case's elements, the isolated farm, the pre-murder oddities, the gruesome crime scene, and the lack of resolution have all contributed to its mystique. It's a story that taps into the universal fear of the unknown and the unsettling idea that such a crime could remain unsolved despite the passage of time and advancements in forensic science. The Hinterkaifeck murders continue to intrigue new generations, ensuring that the story remains alive in the public consciousness. The case's unresolved nature leaves it open to interpretation and speculation, making it a perennial subject of interest for anyone captivated by the darker side of human history and the enduring mysteries it can leave behind. The Hinterkaifeck murders have spawned a myriad of theories over the years, each trying to make sense of the senseless. Some have posited that the killings were the result of a family dispute gone horribly wrong, perhaps an escalation of long-simmering tensions within the Gruber household. Others suggest that a passing war veteran, mentally scarred and adrift after the horrors of World War I, stumbled upon the farm and committed the crimes in a fit of PTSD-induced rage. Another line of speculation points to a crime of passion, with some fingers pointing towards Victoria's husband, who was long dead but whom some theorize may have faked his death in the war and returned to claim what he believed was his. There are also whispers of incestuous relationships within the family that could have led to an explosive conclusion. Each theory attempts to piece together the puzzle, but with each piece that seems to fit, the picture only grows more complex and obscured. The legacy of the Hinterkaifeck case is as haunting as the murders themselves. It has woven itself into the fabric of local folklore, a chilling tale passed down through generations. The farm may be gone, its buildings demolished, but the story endures, its tendrils reaching far beyond the small Bavarian hamlet where it all took place. Today, the case continues to captivate true crime enthusiasts from all corners of the globe. It's a testament to the enduring human fascination with the macabre and the mysterious, a story that, despite its age, has not lost its power to intrigue and horrify. The Hinterkaifeck murders remain a dark beacon for those who delve into the world of unsolved crimes, a reminder that some truths may forever lie just out of reach. And so, dear viewers, we come to the end of this grim tale. If this story has intrigued you, if you find yourself drawn to the dark enigma of Hinterkaifeck, then join us in the quest for answers. Like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most perplexing mysteries. Comment below with your own theories, and perhaps together we can shed light on the shadows that linger around the Hinterkaifeck farmstead. Until next time, keep the curiosity alive, and never stop searching for the truth.